Welcome to Walking the Haftarah. I'm Tyler Merwin, and this is Torah portion, Mattot. This week's Torah portion is Numbers 30, verse 1 through 32, 42. The Haftarah this week is Jeremiah 1, 1 through 2, 3. Mattot means tribes, is an opening line of the Torah portion that reads, Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of the people of Israel, saying, This is what Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has commanded. If a man vows a vow to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. Numbers 30, verses 1 and 2. This week's Torah portion will be part one of a double portion when read in non-leap years, read with the Torah portion Masei. So our portion this week, we're going to cover vows and oaths, vengeance on the Midianites, the division of the spoil, and the request of Reuben and Gad to stay Transjordan. Our Haftarah this week is the initial prophecy of Jeremiah and the beginning of the 3 weeks. Let's begin with the review of this week's portion. We start off with vows and oaths. It's sometimes said, especially in times past, that your word is your bond, meaning that if we said that we were going to do something, you could rely on that person doing exactly what they said they would do. Unfortunately, in our culture today, it's kind of drifted away from that point to where now it almost has to be written down, signed, and notarized to be counted on. And sadly, even that doesn't guarantee much these days, if they have the right lawyer. But a vow or an oath in Scripture, even though verbal, creates a bind between heaven and earth with the weight of the commandments themselves. A vow is a neder in Hebrew and can be used to prohibit something that the Torah allows or obligate one to bring an optional offering. I could, for instance, take a vow to abstain from apples for a month. In this case, if I ate an apple during that vow period, it would be a sin and punishable just as any other sin in the Torah. Or I could vow to bring a free will offering at a certain time. If I failed to do that, it would be as if I failed to bring a required offering, again, a sin. So in these examples, my vow or neder changed the ritual status of the apple and the free will offering. The apple became unclean for me for the month of the first example, and the free will offering became a required offering for me in the second example. Now, an oath, on the other hand, doesn't change the status of an object or an offering, but instead it deals with my behavior. Let's say I make an oath to eat an apple a day for a month. Eat an apple a day to keep the doctor away. If I miss a day, I have violated that oath and have sinned, but the apple itself never had a change in status. It was just my behavior of eating it that was involved. I know it seems a little nuanced, but it is our job to learn the Torah, and these details matter to our Creator. So whether a vow or an oath, when taken, we are obligated to keep it. As a reminder from our Haftarah a few weeks ago in Hukat, if the vow or oath violates Torah, it must be dealt with in a way that is kosher and in alignment with Torah. You cannot violate Torah to keep a vow or an oath. So if that's the case, then you really have two conflicting commandments that are in competition with one another. So the concept that the sages refer to with this is called dealing with the light and the heavy. The idea that some commandments are heavier than other commandments. And Yeshua alludes to this when he said, Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others, you blind guides, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. Matthew 23, 23 and 24. So if there's a conflict in commandments, the heavier of them should be chosen. As in that Matthew thing, it did show that Yeshua did recognize that there are weightier or heavier commandments than others. The biggest heavy commandment with the justice and the mercy has to do with human lives. Anything that deals with human life is on the heaviest side, and it goes on down from there. But as for vows, Yeshua said it was better for us to avoid taking vows and oaths altogether, if possible. If a woman vows a vow to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh and binds herself by a pledge, while within her father's house in her youth, and her father hears of her vow and of her pledge by which she has bound herself, and says nothing to her, then all her vows shall stand, and every pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. But if her father opposes her on the day that he hears of it, no vow of hers, no pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will forgive her, because her father opposed her. Numbers 30, verses 3 through 5. The man of the house is a protective covering for his wife and unmarried daughters that are living with him. As such, he can annul her vow, or let it stand. But if he does annul it, he has to do it promptly. But if he does annul something that maybe should have been kept, he will bear the iniquity for not doing it. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, Avenge the people of Israel on the Midianites. Afterwards you shall be gathered to your people. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, Arm men from among you for the war, that they may go against Midian to execute Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh's vengeance on Midian. Numbers 31, 1 through 3. This is retribution for the incident of Baal Peor. Israel routs Midian and even kills Balaam the prophet who is among the slain. But all the women and young children were left alive. Moses chastises them for leaving the women alive, as they were the ones who seduced the Israelite men in the incident of Peor. So all the women who had known a man were executed, but the virgins were kept alive. The spoil is then divided, and they were divided into a portion for the soldiers and a lesser portion for the people who did not go to battle. Each of these groups gave their portion to Adonai. Then the officers who were over the thousands of the army, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, came near to Moses and said to Moses, Your servants have counted the men of war who are under our command, and there is not a man missing from us. Numbers 31, 48, and 49. 12,000 were sent to fight Midian, 1,000 from each tribe, and they battled against the 5 kings of Midian. But not a single person from Israel was lost in the battle. Truly a testimony and a miracle by the Holy One. The officers all brought an offering of gold to Adonai from their personal portions to atone for their souls for this great miracle. Now the people of Reuben and the people of Gad had very great number of livestock, and they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. Numbers 32, verse 1. This land that they're referring to was the land of Sihon and Og that was on the east side of the Jordan River. This was a great pasture land, and Reuben and Gad had numerous livestock. So they approached Moses, and they said, If we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. Numbers 32, verse 5. This request almost makes Moses blow a gasket. He is having a nightmare replay in his mind of how 38 years ago the children of Israel refused to enter the land and discouraged their brethren in the process. This in turn brought the judgment that they were to die in the desert and their offspring would finally enter in. Here it looks like the offspring are doing a repeat, at least in Moses' mind. But Moses said to the people of Gad and to the people of Reuben, Shall your brothers go to the war while you sit here? Why will you discourage the heart of the people of Israel from going over into the land that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has given them? Numbers 32, 6 and 7. But the tribes of Reuben and Gad assure Moses that they will not abandon the fight. They agree that all their fighting men will cross the Jordan and fight alongside their brothers until all their land is conquered, but their wives, flocks, herds, and little ones would stay Transjordan. This agreement was made with Joshua and Eleazar the high priest, so Moses gave the Transjordan to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. This brings us to our Haftarah this week, into the book of Jeremiah. The Haftarot, which is plural for Haftarah, are normally connected to the Torah portion thematically and or grammatically. But sometimes they're connected with specific time of the year, such as, say, a feast day. More so than the actual Torah text itself. So the connection is not necessarily with the Torah text, but with the feast day that happens to be at that time. So when there are feast days that occur during specific Torah portions, the Haftarah portion is traditionally changed to the one that coincides with the feast day rather than the portion. We haven't done that here because this will change year by year, and depending on how the calendar lines up, will change from year to year. But the next three Haftarot fall in a period known as the 3 weeks, or between the straits. The 3 weeks begin on the 17th day of the 4th month, which is Tammuz, and conclude on the 9th day of the 5th month, which is Av. This is a traditional mourning period, and these 2 dates are days of fasting. The 17th of Tammuz is 40 days after Shavuot, and the Tamid offering in the First Temple period, that 2 times that morning lamb, evening lamb, was actually halted when they ran out of sacrificial animals during the siege of the First Temple. And the protective walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Roman army during the Second Temple on this same date. This is also the day that's believed that Moses came down from Mount Sinai and saw the Israel in idolatry around the golden calf, and he broke the tablets of the 10 Commandments. So this is the beginning. But 3 weeks later, we end up at the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av is when both the first and second temples, Adonai's houses, were destroyed by Babylon and Rome. This is also the same time that the 12 spies returned from spying out the Promised Land, and 10 of them gave an evil report, which ended up with Israel being banished to the wilderness for 40 years instead of entering the Promised Land. The next 3 portions, this week and the next 2, always fall within this period between the straits. It's a time of mourning and sober reflection. They know these events didn't happen because the strength of the army was so great, but they happened instead because Israel had abandoned their rock, the Holy One of Israel. This portion and the next will finish the book of Numbers, and the third will begin the book of Deuteronomy. During this time, Israel is poised at the edge of the Promised Land, preparing to enter in after that 40-year judgment was complete, a time of anticipation and excitement. Our Haftarot for these 3 weeks are actually warnings of what happens if we don't guard His commandments, but instead follow our own heart, our own desires, and do what's right in our own eyes. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, one of the priests who were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, the king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah, and until the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the captivity of Jerusalem in the 5th month. Jeremiah 1:1-3. Jeremiah became a prophet in the 13th year of King Josiah. Josiah became king at 8 years of age and was a righteous king, but his father before him, King Manasseh, was very wicked. Adonai would continue to use Jeremiah to prophesy all the way through the period of the beginning of the exile to Babylon, a total of 40 years. Now the word of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, Ah, Lord Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, behold, I do not know how to speak, for I am only a youth. But Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to me, Do not say, I am only a youth, for to all to whom I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Verses 4-8. Adonai reassures Jeremiah that he has been called and has been equipped for his calling. Then Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh put out his hand and touched my mouth. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to me, Behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have set you this day over nations and over kingdoms, to pluck up and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. Verses 9 and 10. Jeremiah would be given words of both judgment and restoration for Israel, but also for the nations. And the word of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh came to me, saying, Jeremiah, what do you see? And I said, I see an almond branch. Then Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to me, You have seen well, for I am watching over my word to perform it. Verses 11 and 12. In verse 12, the Art Scroll translates the word watching as hastens. So it would say, You have seen well, for I hasten to fulfill my word. The word almond here and hasten or watching is the same Hebrew word. It's just vowed differently. So the first vision that we see here is actually a play on these words between almond and hasten, meaning the same thing. The word of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh came to me a second time, saying, What do you see? And I said, I see a boiling pot facing away from the north. Verse 13. In the first vision, Adonai assured him that he was seeing properly what was shown to him. Now Adonai gives him a second vision. Then Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to me, Out of the north disaster shall be let loose upon all the inhabitants of the land. For behold, I am calling all the tribes of the kingdoms of the north, declares Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and they shall come, and every one shall set his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem, against all its walls all around, and against all the cities of Judah. And I will declare my judgments against them for all their evil in forsaking me. They have made offerings to other gods and worshiped the works of their own hands. Verses 14 through 16. The boiling pot from the north is Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar. In Messianic times, Gog is also to come against Jerusalem from the north, as prophesied here in Ezekiel 38. Therefore, Son of man, prophesy and say to Gog, Thus says the Lord Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, On that day when my people Israel are dwelling securely, will you not know it? You will come from your place out of the uttermost parts of the north, you and many peoples with you, all of them riding on horses, a great host, a mighty army. Ezekiel 38, 14 and 15. The north also symbolizes materialism and its corrosive effects on spirituality. And oh, how true that is in our world today. But you, dress yourself for work, arise, and say to them everything that I command you. Do not be dismayed by them, lest I dismay you before them. And I, behold, I make you this day a fortified city, an iron pillar and bronze walls, against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you, for I am with you, declares Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, to deliver you. Jeremiah 1, 17 through 19. Jeremiah is told to gird up his loins, which is translated here as dress yourself for work. In other words, prepare for battle. Adonai will strengthen him for the challenges ahead. Adonai himself will be his protector. The word of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh came to me, saying, Go and proclaim in the hearing of Jerusalem. Thus says Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, I remember the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness, in a land not sown. Israel was holy to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the first fruits of his harvest. All who ate of it incurred guilt. Disaster came upon them, declares Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Jeremiah 2, verses 1 through 3. Even in times of judgment, Adonai reminds Israel of his love for them and that he still sees them as that young bride walking faithfully after him into the unknown. that walk of faith. Adonai then compares Israel to the first fruits of his harvest. First fruits are holy to Adonai. So even though he is releasing the judgment from the north, the invaders will incur the wrath of Adonai for touching Israel, who are his firstfruits. As the bride, we are to make ourselves ready. We need to turn from our sins that so easily ensnare us and instead turn back to him. We need to focus ourselves to be the true image of Yeshua in this world that's around us. Though we aren't perfect, as long as we hold to faith and keep trying and don't give up hope, he will fill in the gaps. Remember that Yeshua paid the price, and very soon he's coming back for us, his bride. I pray this teaching has been edifying. Let's lift up the name of the Holy One. With love, in Echad, Shalom.